Hey everyone, and welcome back to Diablo Flamenco. In this video we're going to discuss what I believe are the top 5 most important flamenco guitar techniques that you have to learn in order to play flamenco guitar music. And I'm going to give examples of each one and give you some basic exercises so you can practice these techniques for yourself. So let's go ahead and get started. The first technique we're going to look at is a golpe. And a golpe literally means to hit the guitar in a percussive way. And we do this in flamenco to add accentuation to certain beats in our rhythms. And there's a few different ways we can do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the ring finger on our strumming hand, we're going to take the thumb, plant it on the 6th string of the guitar, and you're just going to take that ring finger and tap. And try and get a combination of your flesh of the finger, but also a little bit of nail to get some strength behind your golpe. So that's the basic golpe on its own. And sometimes this happens in things like borderia. So you might have, so you see there's a golpe and then some upstrokes, right? So you might have something like this. Also very common to play golpe with notes at the same time. So if we look at the remate in soleá or the cierre, this, or a variation of that, you hear what's really going on is that note there, I hit the guitar at the same time to add accentuation because that note falls on the downbeat of beat 12 in our 12-beat compás. And for those of you who have studied soleá or a 12-beat compás before in flamenco, you know that beat 12 is accented. So doing that golpe allows it to ring out a little bit stronger. So if you want to practice hitting the note on its own, just try playing the open string and hitting at the same time. It does take practice and it does feel awkward at first, but this is a nice easy phrase to use to practice this as well. So what I'm doing is this chord that I'm holding with the left hand is actually an E major chord that we're holding with 2 fingers and very common in soleá. So middle finger is the 2nd fret on the D string and pointer finger 1st fret on G. Keep in mind I do have a cejilla on the 1st fret of my guitar today. And the right hand pattern, we're going to play the 2 E strings. We're going to do the thumb on the 6th string. Pointer finger is going to do a free stroke on the 1st string. And then our thumb is going to go D string, G string, B string. And then we can hit the E string again with our index coming up. Now when we hit the B string with the thumb, throw in the golpe. So thumb, index, thumb, thumb, golpe, index. And that's a nice, simple phrase to practice this on its own. The next technique we're going to look at is pulgar. And pulgar is the Spanish word for thumb technique. And the way we use our thumb in flamenco is much different compared to fingerstyle or classical guitar technique. While those types will tend to just pull the thumb down, and we do this sometimes as well. In flamenco, we tend to put a little more power behind it by really doing this kind of bounce with the wrist. And I'll turn this way so you can see this, and I'm just practicing for now, just on an open string, but you can see how I really come down here. So the thumb is coming basically from the air, and I'm using some power from the wrist behind it. So this is why in flamenco we have very strong thumb technique and these bass notes that really ring out very strong because we're adding so much more power behind it compared to a classical guitarist or an acoustic guitarist. So if you want to practice pulgar in a simple way, we can just do a chromatic scale on the bass strings. So open and 1, 2, 3, 4 on each string. So open, 1, 2, 3, 4, A string, open string, 1st fret, 2nd fret, 3rd fret, 4th fret, and D string, open, 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice that I'm keeping these fingers, my index, middle, and ring, of my picking hand on the 1st string, This also helps me to brace and get even more power and support to my right hand. Notice as well that I am not taking the thumb and bending it like this. So the power is coming from the inside muscle here, inside of our hand. So notice that I am not bending, I am keeping that thumb straight and allowing it to bounce. So just open 1, 2, 3, 4 on your bass strings. And that is the flamenco thumb technique known as Pulgar. The next technique we're going to look at is Picado. And Picado is where we take 2 fingers on our right hand, or our picking hand. It's usually the index and middle finger. And we alternate them like they're walking to play scales or melodies. And these are rest strokes. So what we're going to do here is if you take the thumb and you're going to plant it on the 6th string of your guitar for support. Now I'm going to take my pointer finger, I'm going to put it on the 1st string. And I'm going to pull back, and now my finger is resting and touching the B string. So this is a rest stroke. So unlike classical guitar that prefers to do a free stroke where this would be into the air, the flamenco way is to touch the string adjacent to the one that you just played. And we're going to alternate our index and middle finger to do these notes. So index and middle. Index, middle. If you ever see people who play bass guitar, they actually use the same technique to play bass lines on their instrument. So index and middle alternating. What I would like you to try as well is once you play one finger, I want you to slam down on the string with your other finger. It's called planting. So you hear I'm cutting the note short instead of making it flow like this. It's good to practice both, but the reason why I want you to get used to the planting is this will help to increase speed and also keep your movement of your fingers much smaller, because we don't want to flail these around when we're trying to go fast. If you look at someone like Paco de Lucia, who is very well known for his fast picado, you see that he barely moves his fingers as he's doing this technique. So index, and see the middle touches the 1st string after to cut the note off, and plant. Now when I play my middle finger, my index swaps. So it's this scissor-like movement. So index, middle, index, middle. And what we can do is we can do open string exercises, which in my opinion are some of the best ways to learn picado as you are just starting out. So what we're going to do here is you can start by playing 2 notes on each string and then move. And notice that as I bring the hand this way, my thumb lifts off of that 6th string, so that way I have room for my fingers. So now I lift as I get to the D string, and if I go back down, as I am about to play the G string, my thumb is now planted again on the 6th string for support. So that's the first step, is to play 2 notes on each string. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. You can go back down. So index, middle, index, middle, index, middle, index, middle, index, middle. Or you can start the other way around. You can do middle first. Middle, index, middle, index, middle, index, middle, index, middle, index, middle, index. As you get used to this, now we're going to do what's called a string cross. And what's awkward with this is keeping the alternation. So now we're going to play 3 notes on each string, which means that as we move to the next string, we're going to start on a different finger. So let's say we start on the 1st string, we're going to go index, middle, index. What we don't want to do is go index, middle, index again and drag the hand. What we want to do is keep the alternation very strict and think of it like walking. We typically don't take 2 steps with the same foot in a row as we're walking down the street. So we're going to go index, middle, index. When we go to the B string, it's going to go middle, index, middle. And then the G string, index, middle, index. D string, middle, index, middle. A string, index, middle, index. And finally the E string, middle, index, middle. So I am, 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 I am. And these are 2 open string exercises that you can use to get used to playing Picado for the first time. The next technique we're going to look at is arpeggio, which is really one of the most common techniques on the guitar in general, especially if you play acoustic finger style or classical guitar, and of course it was adapted to flamenco guitar. And there's lots of different arpeggio patterns, but I'm going to show you just the very basic ones with a simple chord, so that way you can focus on the technique itself. So we're actually going to hold the F sharp chord that is heard in Taranta, my favorite flamenco palo. So what I'm doing here, pointer finger is 2nd fret on the E string, ring finger 4th fret on A, and pinky 4th fret on D. And then your treble strings are open. Very Spanish sounding, very dissonant, tense, to fit the tone of the Taranta. So an arpeggio is where we break down a chord. So strumming a chord is this, but as I slow it down, technically that's an arpeggio, but we're going to think of the finger arpeggios where we pick with multiple fingers here. So there's a few different patterns. There's an ascending, which means we climb up the scale in the chord. There's a descending where we come down, and then there's also a combination where we do both. So ascending is we're going to take the thumb, put it on the 6th string of the guitar. Your index is going to plant on the G string, your middle on the B string, and your ring finger on the high E. And what we're going to do is we're going to go thumb first, and then your index, middle, and ring are going to play free strokes. So rest stroke with the thumb, then index, middle, ring with free strokes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're just going to go down each string and do the pattern. So thumb, index, middle, ring, and then your thumb is going to play again on the A, the index, middle, ring, and then D string, we're going to play thumb, and then index, middle, ring. Notice there for the D string, I do have to come off as a free stroke, because if I tried to rest here, I'd get in the way of my index finger trying to play this arpeggio. So thumb, index, middle, ring, thumb, index, middle, ring, thumb, index, middle, ring. And that's the ascending. Now, if we reverse the order of the fingers, we get a descending. We're still going to start with the thumb, but now we're going to go ring, middle, index. So thumb, ring, middle, index, or P-A-M-I, as you might see abbreviated on sheet music or tab. And we're going to do the same thing. Thumb, ring, middle, index. Thumb, ring, middle, index. Thumb, ring, middle, index. And that is the descending arpeggio. Now, if we combine both of them and move a little quicker, we can get a 6-note arpeggio, very common in flamenco. So the pattern here, we're going to go thumb, index, middle, ring, middle, index. So it's the same thing, it's an ascending pattern, and then we come back descending with the middle and the index finger. And we get 6 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pick up the speed. It's a very effective way to play notes in the chord very quickly, very common for phrases like escobillas and soria. Something like this. get good at arpeggios, you will be doing all the time. I think it's the technique that you're going to be using 95% of the time in lots of different guitar music. And finally, my number one technique that you have to learn in order to play flamenco are rasgueados. And there's lots of different ways to play rasgueados, and I'm going to show you a few of them. So rasgueado literally means to scratch when you translate it from the Andalusian dialect, but in this case we're talking about strumming. So technically a rasgueado could be just down and up strumming. Technically that's correct, but we're also thinking of rasgueado in the sense of flicking fingers from the hand to get these rapid strums and rhythm. So how to practice rasgueado is we're going to take the index, tuck it into the thumb like this. This gives you the strength in order to flick away from you to get power to do a rasgueado. And we can practice this on any chord. I'm going to pick the E flat 9, which is an E major chord, but we take the ring finger, slide it up 1 fret, so now it's on the 3rd fret. Everything else is the same. So you have an open 6th string, and then your middle finger is 2nd fret on A, ring finger 3rd fret on D, pointer finger 1st fret on G, and then you have an open B and E. Now we're going to take our thumb, rest it on the 6th string, tuck that index finger, and we're going to start by just going a down and up. 1 and 2, down and up. So I'm flicking down, and then as I go up, I tuck back into the original position, and I'm ready to start again. So down and up. So down and up. A great way to practice this is to put a metronome on and think of this as 8th notes. So if we have a tick 1, 2, 3, 4, it would be down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up with the index. Now we can start adding more fingers until we're doing a full rasgueado. So the next one to learn is a 2-finger rasgueado. We're going to tuck the middle and index into the thumb like this, and we're going to go middle first, then the index, and then the index is going to come up. This ends up becoming a triplet feel. So on our chord, we have middle, index, index up. Notice that when I flick up, I tuck the fingers back, because most likely I'm going to do multiple rasgueados in a row. It prepares me to loop this if I want. So middle down, index down, index up. Also notice that my ring and pinky are relaxed, they are just hanging out. I don't have to do anything with them, just relax, because otherwise they might get in the way of you trying to do the rasgueado. So one more time, middle down, index down, index up. And that's a 2-finger rasgueado. Now the 3-finger rasgueado, which is more common in modern flamenco, ends up becoming a 16th note as it becomes 4 notes with ring flicking first, then the middle, then the index, and the index comes up. So keep that pinky relaxed out here. You don't have to do anything with it. I'm still planting with the thumb. I'm going to go ring down first, then middle, then index, and then index up. Practice this slowly and focus on flicking individually, because you'll notice that as a beginner you might flick one finger and another finger is going to fly out with it, because you have to gain your independence and control of each finger to flick on its own. So try and get just the ring first, then the middle, then the index, which is the easiest. The index will always have the most control, and then index up. You'll notice too that a lot of times when you're using the ring, you see how my pinky is moving with it. That's okay. because the ring finger and the pinky finger are controlled by similar muscles in your hand. They will get better and more independent, but they'll never be truly independent of each other because we can't, unfortunately, put a new muscle into our hand to make them separate. And same thing as well as we go to the 4-finger rasgueado, using all the fingers tucked, pinky, ring, middle, index, and then index up. A lot of times for a beginner, you'll flick the pinky and then all of a sudden your ring will fly out with it. So again, practice it on its own. Try and just get that pinky to go on its own first. Just think of it as being very relaxed. Just let it go out. So we have pinky, ring, middle, index, index up. It's a 5-note rasgueado. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, I recommend practicing these with a metronome, because if we have something in rhythm, we would have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a, for those rasgueados. And then the 4-finger rasgueado is a little bit trickier to count. I recommend picking a 5-syllable word. Very common one is hippopotamus. Hippopotamus, 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 hippopotamus. To get all of those to fit. And that is the most important technique in flamenco guitar music. And that's all I'll give you for this lesson. I hope you enjoyed learning about these really important techniques in flamenco guitar music. Practice them very slowly and very carefully, and you will see these in every bottle in flamenco guitar. And go out and listen to flamenco and you will hear these techniques played in action. And I will see you in the next class. Hasta luego.